So what we're gonna do today, we're gonna do a quick little skin fade. We're gonna drop it down around the back, and we're gonna do a 3 on top. We're gonna start out first by cutting our top, making sure the top's all even and the length is ready to start our fade. Moving through this class, make sure if you have any questions, you go in the little box on the bottom and ask them. No such thing as a bad question. Very important that when you're cutting the top, you go all the way around, go side to side, you make sure it's fully even. Last thing you want is for your client to get home and notice little hairs sticking up all over the head. That's what makes a good haircut a great haircut. So my model here had a haircut a couple weeks ago. So the 3 is barely taking anything off, and in here it's really not going to do much. So we can actually, after we do the 3 on top, we can go in and start our skin fade without knocking anything in the side down. One of my big pet peeves is having hair on my face. So we're going to make sure that we don't do that to the client either. So every time I do a new guard or I see hair getting on their face, I take a blow dryer, get it off their neck, make sure they're comfortable with the whole haircut. So now we did our 3. We're going to go through and we're going to start our skin fade. So I'm going to start with a closed blade. Some people like to take trimmers and go in and mark their line, but if I go in with a closed blade first and then go through the trimmers after, it'll actually be a much smoother transition without having to work out a line. So I'm going to make sure. Natural fade point usually for me is where these 2 points meet. I'm doing a low fade, so I'm going to make sure I come down right under where the sideburn is halfway. I'm going to come over and then drop it around the occipital bone to give it that low, dark transition in the back.
Hey, so before you start, could you show where you would put you just said a low fade. So could you show where you do a medium and a high as well, please?
Yeah. So it's almost like a rule of thumb. You think fingers. So 4 fingers, that'd be a really high fade. 3 would be like regular. 2 would be about mid. And then 1 finger up would be like a low fade. That's like a general rule I like to play by. But if I was to do a regular fade, I'd start the line right here. Right here at the point where they 2 meet, and I'll go all the way around straight. The guideline would be straight and cleanly cut. Since I'm doing a low fade, I'm going to come about halfway down, and then I'm going to come drop it around the ear to the back, right where the occipital bone is, and then I'll bring it back up to the other side and have about halfway on the other side. If you do something to one side, you must do it to the other. When you're doing a nice balanced fade, you have to make sure that your guidelines are clean and crispy, that they're balanced. You can have one up here and one down there. It has to be the same, symmetrical on both sides. Symmetrical as possible.
Visual. Thank you for the visual.
Yeah. As you know, everyone's body in general is not symmetrical. So that's where it comes to us to make it look symmetrical. I'm coming in now. So basically, going around the ear, I like to let the blade rest. So as I come, I'm not going to come too high. Wherever the blade rests on the ear, that's like my point of where I'm going to put the guideline. Drop it. You can feel for the occipital bone. Some people's occipital bone's higher, some's lower. So I like to kind of just go halfway about where the head gets round. So like I said, if you do it to one side, you must do it to the other. Now, on a regular day, I would just spin the chair and cut the line in. For visual purposes, I'm going to do one side, do this side, and then meet them in the back. If you do your guidelines correct, once you get to the back, they should just meet together. You don't have to do any extra cutting or trying to make sure they're symmetrical. It should already be there. So the next step, once I got my closed blade, that's my clipper line. I know that everything underneath is going to be trimmers. I got my clipper line in. Rather than using actual trimmers on their own, I like to use, like my new thing, I get a detachable clipper and I use a trimmer blade or a 5-0. Some people use trimmers too, but it's all your preference. Now, when I go through, I'm going to make sure I'm not, with my trimmers, I'm not raising this any higher than it is. If you look, you can see the hair and you can see the clipper line. There's like 3 guides in here. I'm only hitting this bottom hairline. I'm not going any higher than this part that's already cut. I'm coming up, I'm lifting off once I get into the hair part where it's cut with a closed blade. Not coming all the way up to the guide, coming up, lifting it off gently. I'm not flicking it crazy, just a gentle lift, and it's not making any new lines, just cleaning what I've already done. The important part when doing a fade is that you have a system, you stick to it. You got to make sure any of the lines you put in for your guides, those are the only lines that should be in the haircut at all, and then you're going to erase them. You don't want to have your guidelines in and then go through trying to erase them and add new lines, because you're only adding more work for yourself to do. Never deviate from your system. As you see, I got my comb. I constantly am combing away the hair that's been cut. You got to make sure that you have a clean canvas so you know exactly what you're cutting and what you're not cutting. Now that I've done that, skin fade portion is done. Now I'm going to come in with my clipper, open the blade. I'm going to make another guideline. We'll say 1/2 inch, maybe a little bit smaller. That's going to be our next guide. And we're going to blend that. Then we're going to work up and we're going to start dropping in between guards. We're not going to run all the way through every guard. So open blade, maintaining the same shape of the guideline. I'm not making a straight open blade line. It's going to be the same shape that I have going around the head. That's important. Keeps the haircut consistent. So within this 1/2 inch subsection, I'm making sure it's a straight, clean guideline. I can see it. It's not going to be jaggedy. It's not going to be blended out with going through. It's just going to be straight, consistent all the way around the head. So now I don't actually have to do one side and then do the other. I can go all the way around the head. So I'm just following the first guideline I did. I'm just going up about 1/2 inch. It's already set. So once I've done that, I'm going to go through, I'm going to close my taper adjustment one time. If you don't have a taper where the detents click or have the lines in it, you just close it a little bit. I like to work all the way through my blade. So now I'm not creating any new lines. All it's doing is cleaning up the open blade. So when I come through with my next attachment down, it's going to slowly take away the line. I'm only erasing the line within the section. So that's done. One more time closed. Now you hear it actually erasing the line. You see it, you know you're getting somewhere. This is my system. Everyone has a different system. This is the one I like to use the most. It's most efficient. I try to stay on schedule throughout the day since I'm appointment only. So last thing I want to do is try to figure out how to do a haircut a new way when I have 10 people coming still. Willie, how are we doing on questions?
Doing great, man. You're answering the blending portions by showing what you're doing, so it's all good.
That's good. That's good. So we already did the one step from closed. Now we're closing the blade again. Some people would move on since they already did a closed blade, but we're all about quality and we want to make sure that there's no trace of a line. So I'm going to come back to my closed blade, which I already did. And I'm not using the whole blade. I'm going to use the corners. I'm just going to flick around and spot fade where I see darkness. When I'm fading, I generally use the corners more than I use the whole blade. When I do guidelines, I make sure I use the whole blade and I get it in there. If you look, kind of hard to tell. When I do my stroke, I'm not actually flicking my wrist. It's all in the clipper itself. Even if I was to flick off, it wouldn't be in my wrist. It would be the actual stroke of the clipper. You have a lot more control that way. When you're just flicking your wrist, you don't have much control. You might hit the wrong area. That's done. Now, by right, my next guard would be the 1/16 or the half guard. But like I said, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to skip some guards and jump around. So I like to take my 1/8 guard or my 1 guard, and we're going to go in and make a subsection that's actually a little bigger than a 1/2 inch. So you got room for your 1/16 guard. Coming in. We'll do about a full inch. Make it easy. So I'm using my whole blade, and I start with the one open. So I break down the border. So I know this is one open. I can't pass that with anything else. And inside is where I can actually use different guards and move my tapers. Make a definite guideline. It's going to follow the same original guideline shape. We're not doing this one straight. We're not doing it down. We're not doing it up. It's going to be the same exact line of the whole haircut. We're creating the balance right now. Once you know how to fade, you can implement it in any little space. So a taper, if I was to do a taper fade, which would be the sides and the back, I'd be doing the same thing with my guards, just in different areas. It'd be a smaller space. I'm gonna close it one little bit. Just slowly clean up the canvas. I'm not flicking, I'm not going up for the guideline, I'm stopping right before the guide and I'm just cleaning up inside of it. still a line. We'll get that out with the 1/16 card. I'm gonna close it almost all the way closed, 1 notch open. Same thing, cleaning up inside my canvas, making room to actually fade it out. If the hair was open one guard, and I came in with a half guard and I tried to fade it, I would just be creating more lines, thus creating more work for me to do, which takes more time. So if you work smarter, not harder, it creates efficiency and you get through your day quicker. So now I'm going to come with my 1 guard closed. I'm just gently leaving it off the head. I'm not flicking crazy. I'm just, as soon as the guard leaves the head, I'm coming off of it. It's actually starting to create the fade. The line's starting to disappear. It's not going to be all the way disappeared because an open blade does not blend into a 1 guard. That's what the 1/16 or half guard is for. Now I said I'm taking my 1/16 or my half guard. And I'm going to go open first. If I go close, I'm going to create another line. If I come open, I'm slowly starting to erase and clean up my area. This is my fence. This is my border. I cannot pass this dark line with anything smaller than an open 1 guard. That'll actually make the fade go way higher. We don't want that. So the low fade is dropping. So now with my open half guard, you can actually see it starting to melt the subsections together. I'm going to do 1 step close. See it even more. Once I close it 1 more step, that's when you're going to really see like, oh, wow, it's actually doing something. We're not looking for a drastic change every time we switch a new guard. We're looking for a slow fade of the gradient of the hair color. We're not looking for a boom, light and dark. We want it to be slow and gradual. Close it 1 more time. It's 1 step from being closed. 1 notch open. I'm gonna use my corners more. It might look like they're flat, but it's actually corners. So now I'm going to go all the way closed. Just going to lock in the rest of the fade. So now I'm going to take my 2 guard, since we did a 3 up in here, and I'm going to skip again. Rather than coming with my 1.5 guard and going and fading up, I'm going to take my open 2 and slowly start to melt this top into the bottom versus doing the bottom into the top, because then we don't want it to get too high. That is a chance. So the open 2, we're not going up into the haircut. We're only letting the clippers leave the head right where the roundness is. You're not going to see a major difference. You're not going to see any new lines. It's only cleaning up and setting ourselves up for the next step. So I leave it a little darker around the head because I'm going to go through with my shears after. I want to make sure that I can just cut that away without making the fade any higher. So I use my shears so I can be more precise in the way I do it. So I'm going to close it one notch. Still using my 2-guard. I'm only cleaning up the rest of the fade. I'm not adding any new lines. I'm not taking anything away yet. It's just a cleanup. One more notch closed. I'm setting myself up for when I come with my 1.5 guard. It's literally going to be effortless when I go through and fade the rest out. All the way closed. Boom. So now, taking my 1.5 guard, open. I always like to start open. It's more of a safety thing. Slowly going and I'm cleaning up the rest of the fade. My notch closed. All the way closed. So now with my shears, I'm gonna come through with my monarchs. I'm gonna make sure that I clean this little dark spot up all the way around the head without lifting the fade up. I just want to blend it through and create the nice round shape on his head. So when I do scissor over comb or shear over comb, anywhere my comb goes, my shears follow. So you're not combing and then cutting here or cutting on top. They stay together in unison. The blade goes. I'm not using both fingers and thumb. It's only my thumb. Okay. Practice that. It's very important. Only one blade does the time. When I'm doing this, I see what hair sticks out of the comb. I'm not digging the comb into the head where everything sticks out. I'm gliding it against my part that's already cut. I'm gliding it. When I get to my spot, I'm going to see what sticks out, what needs to be cut. So now we have a fade that's custom tailored to his head. It's the most important thing when you're doing a haircut. You can't give everyone the same haircut and pretend that their heads are all the same shape, because they're not. You want to make sure you go in and you make it fit them and them only, almost like your shears. Shark Fin, we have the patented finger fitting system that makes sure that your shears fit you and you only. Now I'm going to do the edge up. I'm going to start in the middle, work my way out to the side. Now, when you're doing someone's shape up, edge up, whatever we're going to call it, you want to make sure your trimmers stay on a rail. They're not going up, they're not going down, they stay flat all the way across. Now, granted, you have to take in mind someone's head shape, but I'm still making sure it goes across and it stays flat, not tilting it. So now this poster right here, we're going to do it. We'll go for a natural look. We're not going to do it in, we're not going to do it kicked out crazy. We're going to go to the natural hairline and just make it sharper than what it actually is. This I'm going to keep it wider and natural. Funny name for this part of the haircut. They call it the turn, a C cut, call it sideburn, whatever you want to call it. All we're doing is cleaning up the hairline itself. And we're going to make a C shape, but keep it natural. It's not going to be way inside the haircut. It's going to be only the hairline. Now, if we do it to one side, we must do it to the other. So we already have our guidelines to the front of the edge of itself, the hairline. We're just gonna continue it to the other side. Everyone's hairline is different. Some people have receding hairlines, like myself, unfortunately. You want to make sure that you don't cut it like it's receding. You want to go through and pretend that there's hair there and give them a natural look first. If they tell you like, hey, I don't mind that, it's receding, just edge it up as sharp as possible, then you would. But always go in and pretend that there's hair. Because if they didn't want to pretend, they'll be pretty mad. Same thing, coming in. Natural line, natural shape. Some people like it sharp and they like you to take the hairline in. That's okay. But make sure at first you do it natural unless instructed elsewise. I would use the razor, but until there's some cosmos on here, so I'm gonna do everything with my trimmer. Your best friend, make sure his face is clean. There we have it. Simple, clean, balanced fade. What do you think, Willie?
Fantastic, man. Thank you.
Was there any questions that we missed when I was running through everything?
No, everything was just like confirming how you were blending it. You were blending from the top down at one point and the bottom up at another point and when. So fantastic stuff, man.
Awesome.
As always.
Yeah. So moving forward, any questions, if you missed them in the class, follow Sharkfin Shears and follow the Real Joey Blades. I'm sure either myself or Willie will be happy to answer your questions after this class.
Definitely.